Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy David, and I'm coming at you with another episode of the Free Play Mode Quick Hit. It is October 23rd, 2016, and I am joined by the co founder of the New Gaming Order, Mr. Alex Lexus. What's going down, Alex?
What's up? What's up? I was away on duty. First any broadcast of gaming since getting back, so it's an honor to have that first on free play mode. So this is the Juggernaut bitch invading this show.
Wow, just taking it over. But enough about duty and enough about all that other stuff.
About Judy, who's Judy?
I don't know, Judy. You know Big Booty Judy?
Dang, hold on. All right.
But on a serious note, we were graced with some very serious Nintendo news over the past few days since the release of the Nintendo NX proper, now being called the Nintendo Switch, and I have to admit I was pretty impressed by it. And I normally don't say that about Nintendo products. It did leave me a bit optimistic in their reveal, but I want to get your opinion on what you saw, Alex. What did you feel when you saw that 3 minute trailer to be released by Nintendo? Because after I get your reaction on this, we're gonna get into what you did like, what do you expect from the now Switch, the good, the bad, and some closing thoughts on the product. So go ahead. What did you feel about the initial reveal?
Well, I would like to give a shout out to our mutual friend Shinwar. He actually sent me a link on my cell phone, and it was like a picture of what the Switch was. So I went ahead and did a reaction video, which I also shared on free play mode, and shout out to Tough Nerd Toys on their networks. And I'm gonna summarize what I said in that video on the New Gaming Order Network. It's different. I was indeed impressed for the first time in a long time since the SNES, and that's going way back, that I'm actually somewhat excited for a Nintendo item. Many folks, I deduce and say this. I looked at some of the components and what this system is, or what this entity is. And this was probably, as far as a gimmick, the most clever idea that Nintendo has come up with since, things like the U-Force, Power Glove. Like, Nintendo has always been that trailblazer in the gaming industry. So I see what they did with this. It's like, a fusion of a handheld, a console. It's like it's something new, and I somewhat understand now why they were very guarded with leaking any other technology, because I know 110% Sony and Microsoft would have tried to do something to trump Nintendo's now momentum. And I believe this reveal should have came a lot sooner, though, and I regret that it's not coming out this holiday season, because Nintendo would have made a killing just on that trailer alone. And looking at the different components, where it's like a tablet slash what was that, the Wii U screen, and a docking station and all that. I mean, it's so clever how Nintendo came up with this concept. You can break down the system in so many different ways, thus switching it into different configurations, where even the side analog sticks turn into multiplayer controllers. And with the way, if you look at the controllers, when you break them off, you can actually do it like an SNES controller, but really small. Then you can put two switches together and do four-player play with the NBA game. And I was like, man. And the fact that it's supposed to get some major third-party support, and that's usually the case when you get a new system coming out, to see how they do. But Nintendo has something on their hands here, because, like I said in my video, if you're looking at Japan as the marker, they're always gaming on the go. Shinwar had mentioned this in our interview with him when he went to Shinjuku, Japan. How Japanese folks they don't sit and play as much anymore. Okay, so if you make a console that can go with you anywhere, it's a win-win, especially in Japan. Now, my only issue with it is the media at which the games will be distributed. For a major console, going back to some sort of cartridge SD slot thing where Blu-ray is now the preferred distribution, method for media. Well, I mean, eventually this thing might be okay if they do some sort of streaming service or what have you, but there's just so much that comes to mind, and I don't want to, go on a long rant with it. But I say Nintendo, very clever, very clever. They know how to capture lightning when it comes to gimmicks, and I hope, I really hope that this is a success for the company.
Well, having said that, I'm gonna disagree with a couple of your points here because the first one is I don't think this is innovative at all because we saw something like this previously with the Nvidia K1 Shield.
Oh
So,
yes, this
so
is true.
this is not the first time we've seen like a set-top box for gaming being taken on the go in form of a gaming tablet. So I have a theory, and I want to run this by you because
Mhm.
it's not totally my theory because it is something that myself and my coworker George were talking about when we saw the reveal.
Mhm.
And the theory is that this is not a piece of Nintendo developed hardware.
Mhm.
What we were discussing at my job is that we believe that this is actually the Nvidia K2 Shield that was set to come out but was canceled less than a month away from its release. And we have a theory that Nintendo actually approached Nvidia and purchased the rights to the K2 Shield and rebranded it as the Nintendo Switch.
That's no different than what Sony did with the Nintendo PlayStation, which became the PSX or PlayStation 1, as some of the 09ers probably don't know. So, I mean, Nintendo sees an opportunity, and hey, what happened to them, they did to another company.
Well, they like this would be the first time that Nintendo has not used proprietary hardware in their console
Mm,
slash handheld. So
mhm,
that's what leads us to believe that this was at one point the Nvidia K2 Shield. Because if you go back and look at the specs and everything and the design for the Nvidia K2 Shield, this looks very, very similar to it.
mhm,
So, but that being said, it's not a complete surprise that Nintendo has done this. I do believe that this is Nintendo's last chance in terms of home consoles and to a degree handhelds because they're competing with mobile gaming via cell
mhm.
phone in the handheld market and they're competing with Microsoft and Sony in the console market. So I believe this is their last chance.
Yeah, we all know this. This is their Dreamcast. Like, if this doesn't make it, Nintendo just stay with third party and handheld. Because what happens now? Are they gonna cease, support for the DS and all that other stuff? And also, one a bit of news that I don't know if true, but like I did a Google search and I keep seeing it, not backwards compatible.
Well, as you mentioned before, like the medium in which the games will be delivered is that they will be on some sort of SD card, which means that there will be no disk-based system, and it doesn't look to have any kind of like internal maximum like storage, like a big storage space. Like I think this is going to be similar to tablet storage spaces where it's either going to be 64 gig or 128 gig
Hmm.
because I don't see any like hard drive on the dongle or unless they do like a solid state drive within the tablet itself. I don't see that being any more than 128 gig. So that's
Hmm.
why I don't expect to see backwards compatibility even with the virtual console and them putting Wii U games on it, because Wii U games typically take about 15 to 25 gigs to install.
Unless they use heavy compression,
Right.
and even with that, when you do this, load times could be an issue. A couple other things to like decompress files, and I mean, however this thing is gonna run, the tech in it is formidable. According to reports, Digital Foundry, and all that. So, this is gonna be interesting how they do work this. But like I said in on my video, that they have to have some sort of streaming or something. Like what's the capacity gonna be for those proprietary SD cartridges, and what is gonna be the internal capacity for that
Like
system?
another thing that I went back and watched the reveal trailer multiple times, and the more I watched it, the more unrealistic it seemed to me.
Hmm.
Because even though, as you said, when you interviewed Shinwar when he visited Japan, they game on the go.
Hmm.
Japan is not the number one market. It's not even the number two market. It's the third major market
But
behind.
I want to interrupt for a second. Remember a few years ago on the New Gaming Order podcast, where you and I had this discussion. Um, and I know Japan is not the major market, but they have the greatest range of influence.
Not
So,
anymore. Not anymore.
because if you look at like what game is coming out, okay, if you got like Xenoverse coming out on major consoles, but it's not coming out in Japan on the Xbox One. You know what I mean? Like it's Sony and Nintendo have a wider range of influence in terms of the gaming
No,
industry.
but look at the top selling games. Very few of them are actually coming out of the Japanese market.
Oh, of course. Like you got your Call of Duties, you got third party. Yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying,
But
but
here's the
yeah.
thing, like they were showing like they showed a game of pickup basketball, and then right after the game ended, they showed the guys come over to their Nintendo Switches and break into a game of NBA 2K17. And I'm like, hold up, you just got finished playing an actual game of basketball, and then you're gonna play a game of game basketball right there where you just got finished playing actual basketball. That's not gonna happen. And then
But there was a reason why they did that,
I
and
know they're trying to stress portability, but here's the thing.
no, not only that. It's more or less like I said. I made a point in my video that they're trying to introduce the Switch into your world. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you can play basketball and you play the basketball right there, but it's they're trying to relate it to what people do every day. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
but here's the thing. Whereas people in Japan game on the go, when people in the United States and Europe game on the go, it's ultimately the reason why the PSP and the PS Vita failed. They tried to introduce the console gaming experience to a handheld. And while the games were great, they played great, they controlled great.
I'll attest to that.
What
Ultimate Marvel and
yeah,
Cross Tekken on the Vita was great to me.
like when you are on the go, you are driving somewhere. Like, and that's another point I want to make. Sorry to be jumping around people who are watching this, but what's one thing you did not see in that trailer whatsoever?
In terms of games, or
No.
like,
What was something you did not see in that trailer that is normally seen in every Nintendo trailer that you've seen to date?
I'm trying to think. What, direct gameplay footage, not B-rolled, or I don't know. You got me stumped.
You did not see one child in that trailer. They are strictly going
Mm,
after adult, like young adult gamers with this console, because everybody you saw in that trailer was presumably aged 18 to 30. You did
mm-hmm.
not see one kid whatsoever.
which is kind of I didn't. That's a good observation. Yeah, I watched that trailer several times and didn't even pick that up. And maybe they're now going for a more mature market.
But here's the thing, like it's ultimate getting back to the original point, going after adults when you game on the go. Adults don't have that much time to game when they're on the go because a lot of adults drive to wherever they're going to, or when they're at work, their free time is precious. They don't have a lot of it. And the majority of their free time happens after outside of work when they're at home or on the weekend.
Hmm.
So when I'm gaming on the go, I'm not looking to invest in a complete console gaming experience because I don't have that kind of time. And a lot of adults don't. And
Yeah.
that was ultimately the problem with the PSP and the PS Vita is that while games like God of War were great, Ultimate Marvel was great, Street Fighter Cross Tekken was great, Victorious Boxers was great, they
Hmm.
required you to invest a significant amount of time in them in order to get anywhere in the game. Whereas adult gaming on the go, which is why the Nintendo handhelds are so good, you can play those games in 5 to 10 minute chunks. Same with mobile games, and get a satisfying experience from them. You can't.
But you know what? To have a rebuttal with that, okay, yeah, they can't game on the go. They can game at home, and that's why you can switch it into that configuration where, hey, you know what? I don't have time to do the go thing, but I'll just play it traditionally. I think Nintendo is trying to cover all bases with trying to get to every demographic possible. You know.
That's the thing that's going to hurt this console, in my opinion, is because while they're trying to cover all bases, it's like the tail
You
of
know what? I think I know what you're gonna
it,
get at.
it's like
Maybe.
it's like the
Yeah, go ahead.
tail. It's like the tail of trying to hold on to something so tightly that you lose grip of it because it comes in between your fingers and you just lose it altogether. That's where I think Nintendo is going to fail because they're trying to cover everything that they do from a home console and handheld perspective. They're trying to hold on so tightly that they're going to lose it.
And also the fact that some people might be confused as to what the Switch is. You know, they need to have a firm message as to this is what the Nintendo Switch is. This is what it can do, and this is what we're going to offer you. That's what I believe they failed with the Wii U.
Yeah,
You know, because they were trying to ride on the coattails of the Wii and its gimmick, and then they try to introduce a touch screen and something. It's just like, what is this?
yeah, like a
You
lot
know?
of people thought the Wii U was simply an upgrade to the Wii, and they didn't see it as something necessary that they wanted or needed. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of people who purchased the Wii U, the original Nintendo Wii, which
Mm-hmm.
were like non-gamers, they saw this like,
Mm-hmm.
why do I need this? I'll pass. Like hardcore gamers like you, myself, and
Mm-hmm.
others, like people who read gaming blogs daily, knew what the Wii U was, but that wasn't the majority of the people who owned a Wii who knew what
Mm-hmm.
it was. But I agree if they get out with the marketing for this thing and establish that, hey, this is our new thing. This is not an upgrade to what you already own. This is something new. This is what it does. This is what it doesn't do. Which will and which leads into the next topic of support. Like for
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo to succeed, they need the third party support. And while they put out like a presser like, hey, these companies are supporting us, and put out like a screen full of companies like 2K, Bethesda, Konami, Capcom, what have you, Nintendo has been notorious of doing that in the past. And you maybe see one game from these companies, or you hear
Mm-hmm.
about X game being in development, then they dropped it due to the limitations of the console.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo, like Sony did, they need to go to these companies and go, hey, we know that our console is coming out in about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
let us know what you would like to see in the console before we put it out for production. And Nintendo needs to go to these gaming companies and shore up like guaranteed support, like because if you see this kind of thing from Sony and Microsoft, if they say, "Hey, we have blah 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 making games for us," there's no reason to doubt that because they have a track record of those companies making games for them. Nintendo, since the release of, I would have to say, going all the way back to the Nintendo 64, makes you question that.
Mm-hmm.
Even with when you watch the trailer, you saw NBA 2K17 and Skyrim being played,
Mm-hmm.
but on Bethesda and 2K's official Twitter, they did not confirm those games. They said while we were grateful for Nintendo to allow us to help with the reveal trailer, those games were not actually announced for the Nintendo Switch.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. And I'm looking at the list now on GameRant.com for the full third party support, and you saying that makes me like, interesting. Interesting. And you know what? If you could shoot me that link, that'd be great because that'd be a good read. You know, checking some things out, especially if it's just like a Twitter thing. But um, I just wanted to get like fan reaction of that. And with that list, I'm looking. There's some names that stick out, like Activision, Arc Systems,
From
going for
software.
yeah, from software. You got Bandai Namco, EA, Epic. Going further down the list, you have Havoc, Konami. I mean, just to name a few. I mean, Sega. I knew Sega would definitely be on board. Square Enix. Well, let me scroll down a little bit. Ubisoft. We knew Ubisoft because they were thrown around in there earlier. Warner Brothers and a couple more. So, I mean, that's a good start for right now. Hell, even Capcom's on that list. Um, to say a few, but well, it remains to be seen. Like whatever these companies are able to do realistically, if they can use the same, like similar porting measures, because what used to kill other systems, like, okay, you had the PS3, right? You
Mm-hmm.
had the cell processor, and they had to it was so intricate because it was so different, and it required time and resources. Nowadays they need to make the systems and this Switch easy to develop for, easy to port things from the major consoles to this. You know what I mean? So,
Which is why I believe that this is, in fact, the NVIDIA K2 Shield, because the NVIDIA K2 Shield is running off of an Android OS. And I believe that Nintendo, having purchased that, will put their own shell over the Android OS and make it easier to port to and program for,
hmm
as well as the GPU being NVIDIA, which is pretty much one of the graphical standards at this point in computing and
hmm
game development. So developers would have no trouble developing for that.
hmm
Now, getting on to this section, like, what do you expect from the Nintendo Switch?
to be honest with you, I hope for the Nintendo Switch that it has an identity in the sense that, yeah, we know it's a switchable console, but like I want to like if you're gonna give me Guilty Gear Xrd on the freaking Nintendo Switch, right? It just has to have all the fidelity of the other ports of that game, you know, and I just want it to be that thing where like for the portability thing, if you can give me console level stuff for me, like since I move around and deploy a lot, that would really excite me. I don't have to worry about compromising graphics or anything. Like I just want top level games for Nintendo with good third party support. I just i want Nintendo to be great again. Pretty much like as a somebody says that's not popular in my book, make Nintendo great again. So that's what I'm looking for out of it. Like, at the end of the day, you can't just have Microsoft and Sony tugging for the top spot, because if Nintendo offers a good product at a good value, good content, and people start, buying Nintendo products again, and it makes it like a threat to the others, it's going to make Microsoft and Sony step their games up, and you're going to probably get price drops because now they're going to be fighting for your dollar. And I think it's a good thing, a win for everybody. And what a time it is to be a gamer.
I agree with you. Like, I think Nintendo needs to go into this with a clear message of who they are. That's what I expect from them. Because if they don't go into this with a clear message about who they are and what they are going to do, this is literally going to be their last hurrah before they are
Hmm.
forced to go third party.
Yeah, well, it remains to be seen, And shout out to my cousin Gokin. He said the writing's on the wall. If Nintendo does not get this right, they're done. I
Like,
mean, in many people's eyes, I'm pretty sure Sony had who I forget, that was a while ago. If Nintendo falls, they'll make sure that they, soak up a lot to keep them going. You know what I mean? And that's another topic for
like,
another
like
day. But
financially, I don't think Nintendo will be in any dire straits if this happens to fail because of the goodwill and money they've built up from handheld sales. But from a trust standpoint, I don't see any other developers willing to take that risk with them from a console standpoint if this fails.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, we just have to wait and see how the chips fall.
Right.
Because this is Nintendo's last chance. Get it right. And I don't want to see them go away. I still want Nintendo to be around, because if it had not been for Nintendo, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Contra, and Duck Hunt, I wouldn't be gaming today.
Well,
So
we're
yeah.
gonna move on to, I wouldn't say the bad, but what are some unknowns that you see out there with the Nintendo NX that need to be answered before this console is released in March?
What are some unknowns that? Hmm. Good question. I mean, they put out the specs and everything. It just, I think that for me, it answered a lot of questions. I just want to know, will this just be it? Like, will it be an evolving system? You know what I mean? Like, how Microsoft and Sony went forward, like, mid-cycle refreshes, will that be in the future for this Nintendo Switch, or is Nintendo Switch DX2 or something? Like, is this having enough power to, see creators' vision? I just want to know that, like, whatever's in the Switch, is it going to last? So it remains to be seen. I would like to see it, like, some sort of like evolution as it goes along. You know what I mean? And I hope Nintendo, like, for an unknown, like, if the ship starts sinking, will they stick to their guns this time? You know what I mean? I was kind of, what has me concerned about the Switch is how Nintendo approached the Wii U. Like, they should have, did ride or die. Like, yeah, we messed up, but we're gonna support our system. And Nintendo left a bad taste in a lot of the mouths of early adopters. Pause. But you get what I'm saying.
Right. Like, a couple of unknowns for me is like, one, the battery life. What is the battery life going to be in the portable mode? Because right now, standard tablets, the battery life is anywhere between like 5 to 6 hours.
Or 8 on if you dim the screen a little bit. And will you be able to adjust those types of features on the system?
Right, but they're expecting like when you play this thing on the go that you're constantly playing it, that you're not like having it in standby mode or what have you. So, what is the battery life for play mode going to be on this thing? And
Hmm.
for me, in my opinion, it has to be at least like 5 or 6 hours at minimum. 5 or 6 hours.
Minimum, yeah, minimum. I agree.
The second thing is like, what is the storage capacity on this thing going to be like? Because if you don't have any kind of big storage capacity with this, be it an internal hard drive or like built-in internal, like a SD internal, like a cell phone, like you're not gonna get the support of a lot of these developers that you say you have, because games these days have lots of DLC, lots of patches, DLC both free and paid. And if developers feel that they can't get their full vision on your console, they're not going to release it for your console, as we saw with the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo Wii U.
You know what I would suggest for this thing? If it has a limitation on internal storage, if they won't allow for a 128 gig SD card for memory, they should allow support for external hard drives.
But here's the
And
thing with external hard drives. Not everybody will have one. Like
okay.
with Sony and Microsoft, you know that at bare minimum, developers know at bare minimum, these consoles will have 500 gig hard drives. So they can release the patches, they can release DLC for these games, and know that everybody theoretically will have access to it and be able to get it.
Mhm.
With the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo Wii U, like even though you could do external hard drive with the Wii U, not everybody had an external hard drive. So, like say if I was developing a game and at some later date I was like, you know what? I want to release like kind of a side campaign for this game. I know the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are going to have the space to let me release this on the console via DLC and put it
Mhm.
on a hard drive. But I don't know if Alex Lexus has an external hard drive. I don't know if he's going to be able to get this
Mhm.
if he has a Wii U. And that same question holds true for the Nintendo Switch right now. We don't know their plans for storage. And that's a big question.
Mhm. A good observation. I mean, this thing is due to release in March, and as we go along, we're going into a holiday season, and I think we just have to wait and see, man, because we're gonna be distracted with the release of the PS4 Pro. You got the PS Slim coming out. You got a lot, and then games. You got some big titles that are dropping. So right now, I don't think the attention is gonna be on the Switch until January.
And
And
right.
that's where things are gonna be popping up.
Like the final major unknown for me is price point. Like a lot of people expect this thing to be between $350 to $400.
Yeah, I say about 400 minimum.
And I think it'll be $400, but if they decide to do this and it's higher than $400, because that's typically the price range for any decent gaming tablet these days.
Mhm.
If it's higher than $400, you're going to turn off the market that you're aiming to get, which is adults. Because let's be honest, I don't see many parents buying this for their child and expecting them to take this on the go, because no child is, they're not going to want some child to take this to school and risk it being broken and have a $400 piece of junk sitting at home.
This is indeed true. I mean, yeah, you're like breaking down like outside variables, which it's fair to say, but what the consumer does with it, that's they should, and like you said in that commercial, maybe it's not aimed at kids. It is
Right.
probably a new thing since the SNES, where they're looking for the mature market.
Right, because I have a friend and she has a kid, and to date, like she has bought that kid like three Nintendo 3DSs because
Punch him in his neck. What? You break what? Give him
because
an
like
uppercut, yo. Come on.
he's a kid. He does what kids do. They're like very not gentle with their stuff. So like two of them have had cracked screens, and the third one he broke the hinges off of, and that's the story of his 3DSs. And I don't see some parent wanting to risk that. They're more
Mhm.
willing to risk that with a $150 to $200 device because, quite
Mhm.
frankly, that's not a lot of money comparative to
Mhm.
$400 for a gaming tablet.
Mhm.
So that's the space where I see the Nintendo NX and the Nintendo 3DS
Mhm.
existing in. And
Okay.
so it'll be interesting. Those are the three unknowns for me, the major unknowns right now.
Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, as time goes and as they have more interviews or Nintendo Directs or whatever pops up on the various websites, I'm sure as they reveal things, the more questions will pop up. So it remains to be seen. And that's very much all I got on that.
All right, so folks, with that, we are getting out of here. This is David from the Free Play Mode, wishing you a good afternoon, along with Alex Lexus from the New Gaming Order. This is October 23rd, 2016, and we are out. Peace, folks.
Take it easy. Hit you with the Juggernaut Crush.